Hello, I hope you're doing well. In this video, we're going to be walking through your first watercolor exercise. We will be creating a swatch sheet of your watercolor palette. The purpose of this exercise is to familiarize yourself with the colors on your palette and to start to get a feel for the different consistencies used in watercolor painting. When your watercolor is in fans or dried in a palette, you will want to reactivate them with water before you begin painting. I use a pipette, but you can also use your brush or a spray bottle. I like to get a full layer of water covering my paints to ensure I get enough paint to make a saturated color. While my paints are reactivating, I draw out my guidelines. Draw a rectangle for each color on your palette, laid out in the same orientation as your paints. This palette has 3 rows of 4, which I draw out on my paper. I make sure to leave a space between each rectangle so my wet paints don't bleed into each other. I also write the name of each color underneath the box. Take a moment to mix the water into your paint pan. Some paints may require an extra drop before painting. Once you have a brush that's fully loaded with paint, you can begin painting your box. Because I'm left-handed, I start by painting the right edge and work my way to the left. For right-handed painters, you will probably be more comfortable painting left to right. As I get to the final edge of the square, I change my hand position to make sure I'm painting with the tip of my brush to get a clean edge. You can also turn your paper to get the most comfortable angle. My brush is large enough to paint a whole box without having to grab more paint. If your brush is smaller or your boxes are larger, make sure you are reloading your brush as needed before the paint strokes start getting hard to spread out. When you are finished with one color, wash off any excess paint into your water container and pick up the next color. Make sure you are adding extra drops of water if the paint is too thick. You'll know you have a good fluid paint consistency if your loaded brush looks like it is about to drip. If you don't get a droplet at the end of your brush, it may be that your paint is too thick or you don't have enough paint on your brush. Here are a few of the most common mistakes I notice when people are just starting out. Many people like to start with an outline before filling in the rest of their shape. This creates 4 edges that have the opportunity to dry before you get around to painting near them. If these edges dry out, they will be visible even after going over them with more paint. It is better to start at one edge and work your way across, sort of like a printer. This means you are only working with one edge and can keep it from drying before you finish your shape. If you notice any areas that are spotty or need blending, resist the urge to fuss with it. Watercolor can be unpredictable, and some of these areas can add character and beauty to your painting. If you try to go back in and blend and fuss, these brush strokes will likely be visible after it dries and take away from the freshness of your painting. Once you paint your shape, leave it alone. Many beginners struggle with adding enough water to their paint mixes. If you notice your paint is thick and streaky, you probably need to add more water into your mix. If your paint well can't hold any more water, you can transfer the color to a separate mixing area before mixing in some extra water. Now that you're done, you have your finished swatch card. I make one of these every time I buy or fill a new paint palette. These are excellent maps to be able to find the color you need quickly, and they're always good practice to work on your brushwork and paint consistency. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.